Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Low High Trips. And on this episode, I do hope that the new settings, the mic settings, would be appropriate because I am just testing this out. And I've hit record like now, and I don't specifically have anything on my mind to say, but I realized that I plan more than I execute. So theoretically, when it comes to thinking of plans or when it comes to like creating plans, I do see myself, crafting a very meticulous, I'm not sure if that's the word, a very detailed plan. But when it comes to the execution, I realized that theory does not always translate into practical performance or results. Um, I guess just, looping my thoughts at the moment, just thinking about the past year. Um, I generally don't like to think about the past year as the past year in the sense that I don't like to categorize, everything in 2023, what I've achieved, what I've not in 2024, and all that, because in the end, day, time is a concept. And I've been very crippled by the concept of time before, where I'm more often than not using it as an excuse or like a crutch to cope with the fact that I could procrastinate. So, for example, if I would like to do something in 2023 and I'll be like, oh, you know what? Let's wait for a new slate, a new year, and start in 2024. But if you were to ask me, I think that really stems from the perfectionist tendency where it's like, oh yeah, if I start fresh, then that way, I don't have to like build on anything. But I think the wisest thing, one of the wisest things in the world that I've heard is, the best time to start is yesterday, and the second best time is today. Michael Scott. I'll be very honest, I have no idea who said that, but yeah, I saw it somewhere before, and I think it really resonated with me, and it's something that has stuck with me for a while. Um, and as uh, it's not ironic, but as cliche as it sounds, um, sometimes it's best to just do and not think, like how I hit record and started talking, because thoughts will naturally flow instead of thinking about what to say and then start recording. It's more like you start recording and then your thoughts will flow because, everything's a cycle, and I think it's just performance anxiety, which is funny because obviously speaking, I've been recording podcasts or podcast episodes for a couple of years now, which is very surprising and shocking to me. If you were to tell me like 2, 3 years ago that I would have, maintained, if that's how you want to categorize or define it, a podcast for at least a couple of years, then yeah. Although one thing I do find is that when it comes to recording a podcast, especially solo ones, um, apologies for the very sharp sound, especially when it comes to S and T's. I realize that when I'm recording a solo podcast, it would be nice if I could swallow my saliva and like, you know, breathe in oxygen without um, having the entire world listening to it. I mean, I can definitely cut this outside of the episode, as in post production, but it is not authentic and natural and organic. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I definitely overthink a lot of things, and that's not a personality trait. That's not something attractive. I mean, it's not, oh, haha, I overthink. I am so quirky. I am so unique. I am different from the 8 billion people. Is it 8 billion right now? Isn't that wow that we've got like 8 billion people in the world? Um, yeah, that's as well to know that there are billions of people out there, billions of individual lives, unique ones to themselves. Um, no two are the same. Uh, yeah. All right, hold on. Just let me swallow my saliva. I've been powering this through for like 5 minutes now, trying my best not to swallow my saliva, but unfortunately, bodily bodily fluids. Body fluids is not something that I can control. If I cannot sweat for the rest of my life, I would take that offer. And speaking of which, I do envy Koreans a little bit because I did read um that Koreans do not have that genes or hormones where they produce like body odor. What the hell is that, man? Like, isn't that a little bit too OP? Like, that doesn't make sense. What the fuck is that? Like, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair at all. We're all different, but what's with that advantage, Very interesting. I'm wondering if science can extract that genes and somehow inject it into everyone in the world, but that would bring down the deodorant industry. So big deodorant would definitely be against that. One second, let me just slow myself. All right, back. So yeah, speaking of like gene, can't recall the name of it, like gene design or whatever. Like, given a choice, would you decide on your baby's characteristics, like Sims? I think that's pretty interesting. Um, yeah, I don't specifically have a thought on it, but I think when it comes to avoiding disabilities, in the sense that if as a parent, given the choice that I could decide to remove a, I don't know, disability in my child, I would I would play God, because I think that I do not want the child to suffer. Not saying that everyone with disability. No, you know what? No, let's just face the fact. Every people with disabilities do suffer in general more than quote unquote. I wanted to say normal people, but maybe let's just go with people without disabilities. I don't know. I think growing up with Adrian, for context, Adrian has autism. He's an autistic man, autistic boy. He's gained a bit of weight now. He's a bit fat, cute, chubby. Um, looks like a bao or Chinese bun. If you do not know what a bao is, if you do not know what a bao is, please enlighten yourself. Go and try a bao. It's one of the best things in the world. Not really, but yes. Um, yeah. I mean, thinking about growing up with Adrian, I think it has really shaped who I am as a person a lot. I feel like it's difficult for me not to see other people's like perspective. I don't know. I think because maybe growing up with I Adrian could not communicate with me. So, as in, he could not verbally communicate with me. He could only like communicate non-verbally with like cues and body language and facial expressions. And I've always needed to somewhat like predict. No, actually, predict's not the right word. I guess I judge or guess or theorize what Adrian was feeling at that moment, like what he wanted, what he needed. Basically, like a baby, And yeah, that gave me quite a. I guess like constantly just thinking like, oh, what does the person truly want? What does the person truly need from any communication? But yeah, I don't know. I feel like everyone can work on the communication skill. Um, and what I'm recording an episode right now. Adrian, mommy asked you go sleep. Go take a nap. You finish already the coffee? Ah, you go throw. You throw this for Coco. Ah, you throw this, good boy. Thank you. Adrian has the fattest ass in the house. Fattest ass in the world. Fattest man on earth. What? Oh, okay. Good night. Bye bye. See you soon. See you in 1 hour or 45 minutes. I think that's the best optimum time for a nap. Bye bye. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like communication is something that everyone can work on. I feel like, I don't know, when it comes to like transparent communication, saying what you want, saying what you need requires the absence of an ego or the management of one, where you do not let it hinder the solution focus or result focus approach. I don't know. Just people should start. No, some people should start being more straightforward. And I think a lot of people confuse being straightforward with being like brute, or being very rough or unpolished when it comes to the communication. Like me shouting at Adrian, or me shouting at anyone in general, like, hey, do this, do that. It's like, I don't think that defines being straightforward, as in, you do not need to be mean, nor you need to dismiss the other person's emotions and circumstances when it comes to being straightforward. I think um, the tone of your delivery of message is as important as the message itself. Because if you were to deliver a very important message, but the tone is completely off, that completely diminishes the essence of the message. At least that's what I believe, because I feel like the tone is what sets the other person's emotions, or sort of like vulnerability or level of acceptance to your message. So imagine if, yeah, I feel like that's something that I'm gradually trying to work on, instead of just like, no, this is stupid, this is wrong, how can you do this, my opinion is right, everyone else's is wrong, you know. But communication should be person centered. I feel like communication skills would mean that you're able to adapt to various communication styles, or having a person centered approach lah, basically. um some people might work well with uh just instructions, with zero, fluff, or filler words. But some people might want their emotions to be acknowledged and validated before being given a response. And I think in general, acknowledging and validating people's emotions are crucial to any communication styles out there. But at the same time, I don't know, I do feel like acknowledging and validating one's emotions do not mean that you allow it to spearhead or drive your decision making um, skills or capacity or whatever. I can't think of the word right now, but I feel like feeling an emotion does not give you the right whatsoever to react in any certain way. I believe, at least that's my opinion. Like when it comes to, of course, special circumstances aside, when it comes to reacting to people's, I don't know, actions, words, does it make sense if that's your responsibility, instead of like, oh, person A did this to me, so of course I had to react that way. Of course I had to, because in the end of the day, like if you're not held accountable of your actions and behaviors and words and you know decisions, then who should be held accountable then? Of course, like I mentioned, special circumstances aside, can spend all day providing disclaimers. Oh, I do realize that I provide quite a bit of disclaimers in general when it comes to my day-to-day communication. I think that stem from several factors. One of it could potentially be, what if this person takes my word for word, like literally, and completely take me out of context? I think I was very afraid of being misunderstood, where if I were to say like ABC and then someone else were to interpret it as like DEF, and somehow I would feel responsible that I did not communicate effectively enough. Maybe that's something that I'm a bit self-critical about, but there's something that I'm learning to. It's something I'm working on. It's something I'm definitely working on. Where if I were to deliver a message, it's sometimes not my full responsibility as to how people interpret it. Because different people interpret things differently, just like how two people would interpret a piece of art completely differently. And I think that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of words. That's the beauty of art. That's the beauty of everything, Like things are up to subjective interpretation. Because if things are objective, then there is no art in the world. Because art is subjective. Art is person centered. But going on to decision making skills as well, I do feel like as I grow older, now that I'm an adult, I want to say like I'm technically an adult, but no. Let's just accept the fact that I'm relatively old. I mean, I'm not like, okay, you know what now? Yeah. So when it comes to decision making skills, I do feel like um the older you get, the more factors you have to consider. And factors is one thing, but people that you love is another, which is every decision that you make could potentially be life changing. I don't know, it's like not multiverse, but like how your pathway splits into like, different pathways. Sorry, your life pathway splits into like different branches, like a tree. Like one small decision could have the compounding butterfly effect for the upcoming decades, basically for the rest of your life. And some of them are irreversible. And I think that sometimes scares me. I think the thought of like a decision has um, a lifelong consequence. And sometimes that cripples me, if I'm being very honest. And I think that is the reason why I, at times, struggle with key decisions. You know what? I'm just going to be honest. It's not even key decisions. Sometimes it's just like insignificant ones, like what should we eat tonight? What do we want to eat? Because I think I package um, the consequences or projected consequences with every decision that I make, which I don't think is very healthy because in the end of the day, um, life is unpredictable. And I used to be a person who plans for the long term. I think I mentioned it in a few episodes before this. I think the one with Angeline, and yeah, I feel like I genuinely enjoy, or maybe the enjoyment comes from having a sense of control, and having a sense of control makes me feel secure, and I enjoy being secure. If you don't, then great, but unfortunately, that's not how it works for me. And yeah, I tend to overplan, I would say. But one lesson that I've learned over the past few years is that you can't really plan too much for your life because the world is constantly changing. Like 1 month, there is nothing going on, and another month, there's like a whole war has started. It's like there are world changing events happening quite literally on a daily basis, which is pretty daunting to think about. And as grim as I would like to be, I think that, yeah, I'm not even sure. I mean, I don't think I'm generally a very hopeful person. I think that I try to be as pragmatic as I can be, as well as pessimistic. Um, Pessimistic borderline, I guess. But yeah, every decision you make. No, actually, going back to the planning bit, I think you can't specifically plan medium to long term sometimes because of the fact that number one, you do not have sufficient data. Number two, your projection of the future is more often than not inaccurate because you're not able to, account for the circumstances and things outside of your locus of control. So that is another thing. And I realized that, yeah, the only constant is change, and that has been very prominent and evident in my entire life where I'll be planning for this and that. And then nearing to the execution of the plan, my circumstances have completely changed. In fact, I'm in a completely different country. So, you know, what the fuck is planning? Ah, I don't know. I feel like life is essentially just the accumulation of making decisions, life changing decisions, since you're born up until the day you die, which I think is the beauty of life. Um, I used to really enjoy those, I don't know, like playbooks. I'm not sure even if that, I can't recall. It's like a choose your own adventure kind of book, like, but it's like I played two. One is Goosebumps, and one is like some fantasy fighting game, which is pretty fun. And it's all book, it's great. It's like you read and then it's like, oh, if you choose to slice your head, turn to page 77. If you choose to eat your own feces, turn to page 99. If you choose to, circumcise yourself, turn to page 100. I used to really enjoy those books because I'm like, wow, my actions have consequences. That is amazing. I can be held accountable. But then now that I'm no longer living in a fantasy world and we're on reality and hopefully not a simulation, even though, no, although, even if we are living in a simulation, does it really matter? Because can you truly distinguish between reality and simulation? I don't know. When I was young, I used to interpret deja vu as my no. I used to interpret deja vu as someone in the world actually traveled back in time, so I had to relive that specific experience. And my theory was that, oh, I don't experience deja vu on a daily basis because my life would have like branched out to like different uh branches. And when I experience deja vu, it's when I made exactly specifically the same decision, which is extremely low probability, where the person who time traveled did not make a decision that compounded the butterfly effect all the way to the point it impacted my life. Look, I was young, I had no idea what I was talking about, but I still hold true to that belief if you ask me. I don't know. Deja vu, dreams, nightmares, interesting things. Shout out to Sigmund Freud, by the way. I know there are a lot of I wouldn't use the word controversy. It's nice to use the word controversy, but I think it's more like there's a lot of science debunking Sigmund Freud's theories. But however, I do think that his presence alone is life is world changing because father of psychology and them things, yeah. But it's quite interesting because his experiments, the sample size is not exactly I want to use big words like conducive, but I have no idea what conducive is. So I'm just going to drop it. But yeah, his sample size are predominantly, like, I think, Victorians, people from the Victorian era. Look, I'm really bad at history and geography. Used to, used to be one of my worst subjects. No, actually, art was my worst subject when it comes to drawing and like coloring, because every time I used to draw like mountains and like trees and houses and like a sunrise or sunset, because art, I would watercolor them multiple times because I'm unhappy with the shade of the color, up to the point where the drawing paper would tear. So there's always a hole in my art piece, and that's why I'm always like deducted a huge chunk of marks. So that's why I always almost fail art, which is fair if you have a hole in your damn paper, right? Like, guess that makes sense. But how do you judge art anyway? What gave, Anna? I think the school system, like, as much as I like to complain, oh, it should be about education and not exam and testing, which gave me a lot of PTSD. Fuck exams, by the way. Um, yeah, not a big fan. Just anxiety inducing. And I think like 9 out of 10 times, I would always fall sick right before an exam. And back then, I would put that onto like, oh, it's my bad luck. My luck is so bad. But in fact, it's more like upon reflection now, with more insight and with more maturity, and, you know, to admit that it was actually partially my fault because my lifestyle would be impacted, and it would change a lot where I would consume unhealthy food leading up to exams, and I would sleep just a few hours a day because I try to cram everything up because I'm a last minute person. And that's why I would fall sick every time before exams. And yeah, I guess I'm getting a bit thirsty. Just gonna go make. Actually, no, I shouldn't make myself another cup of coffee. Just had a cup of coffee. And speaking of which, no, I'm not going to be negative. All right, so yes, I don't know if you are listening to this. I hope that you are making the best decisions for yourself and your family members. And I hope that you have a lovely year ahead where things go smoothly. And if they don't, I hope that you build the resilience and the strength and whatever that's necessary in order for you to overcome these life circumstances that we can never control. No, we can sometimes control, but more often than not, not. Just, good vibes to everyone. Take good care of yourself. Enjoy the rest of the year. Enjoy the rest of your life. Um, Even though life is the longest thing that we could experience, but yeah, it's cliche, but I think it's very true. Life is fleeting. Life is short. One day from the other, as in, you're not promised time. I guess the only thing certain, once again, is change. And we need to learn to embrace it instead of constantly fearing the future, which is not practical because that disables you from making the best decisions of yourself, for yourself, sorry, and your loved ones, because you would be crippled with fear and that would impact your decision making skills. And that's it. So, thank you all for listening. I genuinely appreciate each and every single one of you who are tuning in. Um, I've been asked these questions quite a few times actually. What is the theme of your podcast? Like, what are your topics? And I guess the best way that I can describe it is that there's nothing specific, and it has changed organically since the launch of this podcast. Where I don't know, it's just anything and everything, just like an Instagram page, like your social media account. Is there a theme? Maybe not. It's just whatever is whatever that I want. I think as simple as that. I think I need to own to it. I need to stop dismissing things that I want because I tend to justify all of my decision making, all of my decisions. So I'm always like, oh yeah, no, like why do I do this? I do this because of this and that, because it's the most efficient um pathway, because it's the most effective decision, because it's this and that. I justify everything, but maybe sometimes I can cut myself some slack and not justify everything. Because what's wrong with wanting something, right? Isn't that humane? Not humane. Isn't that the essence of being a human? I think. I hope. All right. Thank you all for listening. Stay high, stay low, stay safe, drive safe, stay hydrated, and take care. I'll see you in the next episode.